Hello, my name is Jack Hopkins, and I'm here today to talk about the 2024 Astrological Outlook. The world population grew by 75 million people over the last year. On New Year's Day of 2024, we probably stand at least 8 billion people in the world. So the world is growing and the population is expanding rapidly. Change is affecting our lives more than ever before. If we look back at 2023, there was so many fundamental things that seem to be falling apart. In the United States, we have internal struggles. The economy, although it's doing quite well, is perceived as not working at all, and the average American is concerned about prices, etc. We've seen authoritative states from around the world trying to seize power, trying to seize whole countries. The war in Israel is fundamentally destroying the status quo in that area of the world and threatens to escalate to something even greater. So 2023 was not what you might call a walk in the park. It was a tough year. So what's going to happen in 2024? In order to understand this, the fundamental concept is that life is full of change and requires constant adjustment and transformation. If we go all the way back to the Greek Aristotle, no man ever steps into the same river twice, for it's not the same river and he's not the same man. In the Hindu tradition, you have Shiva, the god Shiva, who is the destroyer, and she's the supreme lord that creates, protects, and transforms the universe. So life is all about change and transformation, which is always a challenge because you don't know exactly what you're getting into. You kind of look into the future and it's this big void that could be quite upsetting and threatening. You don't know what to expect. And a lot of it has to do with how we are able to respond, because we're part of that process. So let's take a look. If we turn the clock back to like 2008, the planet Pluto, which is very much aligned with this concept of Shiva being the destroyer and renewer of the universe. Pluto destroys and transforms and shapes and morphs into different forms that are better adapted to survive in the world. In 2008, we had a financial meltdown when Pluto went into Capricorn, into the sign of Capricorn. Now, Capricorn has to do with the establishment, with big governments, with big institutions like banks, corporations, the government, anything that represents a solid foundation of civilization, of some sort of civilized control, centralized control. And what did we see happening is when that planet Pluto went in there, we had this horrific financial meltdown. And in the interim, since January the 26th, 2008, all the way up to what will be January 20th of 2024, Pluto's been in, for the most part, in the sign of Capricorn. And what we've seen is fundamental change in institutions. The Republican Party doesn't look anything like it looked 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's completely changed. And the complexion of American society has changed. Around the world, we see institutions and different governments and different societies going through fundamental type of changes during this time. We had a potential takeover in our government, trying to destroy the system of transfer of power. So when Pluto goes into a sign, we're given the choice. We're given the choice, and that's the important part. We're not forced into anything, but we're given the choice. The circumstances confront us. We have to make a choice. We have to do something, yes. But what we do is all up to us, and that's the real important point. So now Pluto will go into Aquarius. Now, unlike Capricorn, which tends to be traditional, like centralized power, it's the old guard. It's the business as usual. Capricorn. Aquarius doesn't want anything of that. Aquarius wants new ideas, new approaches. It's searching for the truth in a deeper sense, that because it's expanding its concept, and it's concerned about humanity and the broader concerns with the population. So Aquarius is much more interested in community, in rights, in freedom. Many times it's associated with science, because theoretically the scientists are looking for the truth. They're looking for the way that things really are. And there's a whole system of scientific proof that needs to be presented. And this concept of proof really even enters into our court systems, where you have to, if you're accusing somebody of something, you have to provide evidence, you have to make a case, you have to be able to prove by the facts. And arriving at some sort of fact is what Aquarius is all about. Now you could say, well, what is the facts? Well, we have various means of that, and in a theoretical sense in the court system, it becomes a lot looser than it would be, of course, in science. In science, you have very, very discrete sort of criteria. So that if you want to prove something in science, you have to be able to repeat the experiment, etc. It's very stringent. Okay, so what happens now when Pluto goes into Aquarius is that the scientific methods and science itself, especially communications, are going to be accented during the first 6 years of this time. So between 2024 and 2030, you're going to see a proliferation of means of communication and opening up channels of communication. We have a situation now where we have huge amounts of people coming in through our southern borders. 10,000 people a day, I think, on an average over the last month. Just incredible. This is like humanity trying to find a better place where they'll have personal liberties, and they'll be having the ability to hold decent jobs and provide for their families, etc. And they're jumping on this idea that if they can cross over into the United States, they'll be free. Okay? And we're having a real big problem with that. So that this is the whole thing, that the choice that we need to make during the year is what sort of inclusion are we going to be happy with? Right now, there's a real strong backlash against any sort of ability to include immigrants into our country. And this is not the first time this has happened, but it's going to be something that does surface. And so this sense of impending change that we cannot stop. These people are coming. The economy is moving. Businesses are finding new ways to address their products and their customers and so forth. So how is all this going to happen? In Aquarius, you're going to find new ways, inventive ways that are thinking outside of the box, that are very different from anything you've seen. And the danger on one hand is that they'll be too radical. Okay, Aquarius, in the good sense, is brotherhood and community, and all mankind is one under one umbrella. In a negative sense, it's mind control and a very, very much intolerance of anyone's individual rights. So again, the choice is up to us. Now, what will happen is that early in the year, we will have a sextile of Jupiter with Saturn. Okay, Jupiter and Saturn are the business planets. Okay, they have a lot to do with big enterprises and things that affect entities like Wall Street and so forth. So this idea of having a sextile is good, because new ideas come in, new ways of exchanging goods and services. The United States is now producing more oil than it ever has done, somewhere along the order of 130 million gallons a day, which is an incredible amount of oil, and we're exporting oil for the first time. So this is a big deal, and this is directly going to affect Russia's grasp on the oil production, because that country exists almost exclusively on gas and oil as its financial basis. So us moving into that area is going to directly threaten their financial security. So that's something that we're going to see. It's a good aspect. We're in the right place. We have the resources. We have the ability to provide the goods and services. On May the 25th, Jupiter will enter the sign of Gemini. Again, this concept of being able to communicate new ideas, new exchanges, new concepts about how we can put things together in ways and understand the opening of the communication, hopefully, between our political parties. All of this sort of thing that where people are willing to discuss and people are willing to exchange ideas and see if there is some sort of an insight that can be gained from that. That is favored during the time that Jupiter will be in Gemini. Jupiter will stay in Gemini for approximately a year. So it'll be in May the 25th to approximately May 25th of 2024. Now, what will happen at the same time is, as all of this new stuff is coming up and people are discussing, there's going to be some confusion. It's not going to be, automatically, magic that everything is like wonderful. Everyone's agreeing and exchanging ideas. There will be some more along the lines of like March, in that area. There's going to be some confusion as to, how to make sense of all of this. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, because that really does tie into this whole idea of having Pluto being in Aquarius and having these new concepts, taking chances, going to new directions, trying uncharted waters and so forth. That's going to affect it. I'm going to show you what's going to happen later on. By the time we move into April, okay, Jupiter will conjunct with Uranus. Now, Uranus is the sign of Aquarius, okay? Uranus rules Aquarius. So again, this idea of having innovative ideas, going out of the box, trying new things, innovations in science, innovations in technology. There could be innovations in warfare. The drones in the Ukrainian-Russian struggle are instrumental. This is a new form of warfare, being able to defend your country with basically handmade drones. And they're winning. It's working. So again, this idea also of innovation is very strong. By the time we get into May, and then again peaking in September, there's going to be some very deep struggles with all of this. That we're trying to pull into new territory. Everything looks, promising, etc. But there's going to be some big back push resistance. There will be some major hurdles that need to be crossed. It's not going to be easy during this time. It's going to be rather severe. And what's going to happen is that people will have to commit, or governments will have to commit to a position that makes sense. And hopefully, out of all this discussion that had happened prior to that, there could be some sense of a path forward, some practical means of strategy that will address some of the problems and try to resolve it based upon some sort of inclusive agenda. And that will happen, like I said, it peaks in May and then again in September. So in terms of the elections, it could be very contentious during this time, where you have the mega people in America versus the liberals, and there could be all sorts of accusations, takedowns. There could be big upsets in terms of who's running, what's happening in the courts and so forth. all of this stuff could be surfacing, and it could be quite intense and quite nasty. What will happen is eventually, as you in August and also in December, so kind of on the heels of this other thing that I just mentioned, there'll be kind of a resolution. It looks like it will bite into some real tough stuff. And then as a result of doing that, there'll be some sort of a loosening up and some sort of an agreement that could be made. So there is hope. It looks like there's going to be sort of like an irreconcilable confrontation that looks like it can't be resolved. And then eventually something gives and a path forward is shown that different parties that are involved would agree to. By the time we get into August and then again in December, okay, this is going to be a time where that period of bringing in the new ideas and so forth and the new concepts, trying to like explore some different theoretical possibilities, getting people on the same page, that's going to kind of be over. Like what had to be said or could be said is finished. And at that time, there'll be somewhat of a crisis that we're going to have to do something about all of these different ideas. Like I mentioned, there was like a loosening up that we sort of looks like people will get along with some sort of agreement. However, by the time we hit those two dates in August and December, we're going to have to take action on things in spades. We're going to have to do something about it. We can't talk about it forever. And that is the time when this sort of thing needs to show up. Now, one of the things that is underlying all of this is that since April of 2011, Neptune has gone into Pisces, okay? And Neptune is still in Pisces. It will not exit Pisces until 2025. But Pisces is a very subtle energy. It's artistic, it's imaginative, and it's inspirational. It sees people kind of how they work under the radar. It kind of like sees everybody as like fellow human beings along the karmic path of life. Okay, so it's very compassionate, it's very imaginative, and at the same time, it can be very gullible. What we see in this country since this 2011, and it really dates back quite a ways before that, but a willingness to go along with misinformation, because Pisces is confusion and illusion. Now you say, well, illusion, what do you mean by that? Either accepting illusion or being able to see through the illusion to the underlying truth. Many people in our country are laboring under a lot of illusions. Every Republican presidency since Reagan, upon getting into office, has cut taxes for the wealthy, okay? Created this huge disparity between the rich and the poor, and it's getting worse. The average person might not understand this or doesn't want to hear it. That there's an illusion that people that cut taxes for the rich and throw the burden onto the poor, creating lousy jobs, poor education, and health care, are doing them a big favor. And it's my contention that this is one of the principal things that we're going to have to guard against in 2024, is that a large portion of the population is supporting politicians that aren't doing them one bit of good, that are exploiting them. And they've been they've been convinced that this is the best thing that could happen. That you have a situation in government where President Biden is being impeached, and there's absolutely no evidence. There's no basis for the impeachment. It's like bringing somebody into court and say, well, what's the crime? Oh, we have to find out what it is. Ridiculous. We have to find out what it is before during the court, during the case. It makes absolutely no sense. And yet there's great support for this. Why? Because it stirs up a sense of like being conforming to people that are out to protect you. But the people that are being protected are not being protected. The people that think that they're being protected are the ones that are being exploited. And the ones that are shouting the most are the ones that kind of see through the illusion. And so this sense of Neptune in Pisces is going to really, in a big way, swing the election one way or another. That people do not get it. So that the Aquarian, Pluto and Aquarius, wanting to get to the truth, this is something that is desperately needed. What is the evidence? What are the facts? What can you bring to the table? Not some sort of nonsense that we'll figure it out later, but what is actually happening? And this sense of being insistent upon some sort of objective truth. What are the facts? How does it work? How do you build your case? This is what 2024 is going to be about. So I wish everyone all the best in the year to come, and I hope that you find happiness and truth and authenticity in the year to come.